Today on the show Radical Ones, in the name of the moon, we have Sailor Moon herself. It's Terri Hawkes, the iconic voice actress behind the 90s dub of Sailor Moon.
Boom! Prism! Power!
It's time to get radical. Just to introduce this amazing special guest, this is writer, actor, director Terri Hawkes, the talented and lovely actress behind our beloved Serena in Deke's version of Sailor Moon. And our Radical Ones, our listeners might know Terri from other retro topics such as Care Bears, which we love, General Hospital for soap fans, and the horror movie Prom Night 2, which we are covering in October, I believe.
Okay. Really? Okay.
Just because of your involvement.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's wild. It's amazing how your past comes back to haunt you.
Oh.
Oh, it is awesome. It is totally awesome.
First off, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know you are traveling the world, I feel like, doing conventions all the time, but just the fact that you would do this means the world to me.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Really.
Thank you so much. Speaking about the conventions, Terri, and I truly hope to be able to meet you at one of them whenever you do come back to the States, and maybe Arizona, maybe New York.
Maybe. I'm coming to New Jersey this year sometime. I forget when exactly. But anyway, yes, that would be nice to meet you face to face.
I would take the trip to New Jersey for sure to meet you, Terri. So that's exciting. I'll keep an eye out for that.
Okay, great.
But how has the journey been meeting Sailor Moon fans over the course of the years you've been doing this? I mean, I feel like I've been watching your interviews for years over the years. So to do this again is just,
Well, it's a privilege, first of all, meeting people face to face or on Zoom or through other mediums to talk about work that you've been invested in that you hope resonates with people. And I have found that with Sailor Moon, in particular, it has borne many meaningful conversations with people over the years. And I actually didn't used to do quite as many anime conventions. I was busy doing other projects and raising a couple of kids and caring for a couple of parents as they were older and not so well. But now I kind of have a little more time. And so I've really just this past year started accepting more invitations again in the States.
yes.
And I'm kind of surprised by how relevant Sailor Moon still is and how many people are still very interested in it. And so it really prompts me to think about why that might be. And I think there are a few reasons. Shall I go on? Or
I would love to hear what you think.
Okay, well, I think part of it is just the show itself.
Yes.
That it is considered by many to be the gateway to anime, which of course we didn't know at the time, but has become more apparent as the years go on. And alongside that is the structure of the show and the characters of the show, which are girls. So they're girl superheroines. And that was not the norm. I still think there are probably a few more male superheroes than superheroines, but certainly at the time in the 90s when we were recording this, that was kind of groundbreaking. And I think that still resonates today. I mean, obviously gender is something that is very complex and can be looked at from so many different angles, and there are, graduate degrees in gender and but it's a compelling conversation. And I think, and the fact that there was this group of Sailor Scouts, these girls who were imperfect schoolgirls and sort of navigating crushes and tardiness and
Yes.
rustiness, all that kind of stuff. They were imperfect by day, and yet they mustered courage and strength, especially when they came together as a team. And then they would fight the Negaverse and create miracles, essentially. And
Yes.
I think it's a beautiful metaphor for the power of community, the power of friendship. Some of the stories tackle very meaningful themes like forgiveness, and I think it was a wonderful vehicle for not just little girls and not just little boys, but young adults, adolescents,
Yes.
girls, boys, men, women, people who are binary. Just it has touched so many people. I've heard so many meaningful stories along the way. So that's the second part of what I was going to say. So I think one of the reasons it still resonates is
Yes.
because of the beautiful stories. Naoki Takeuchi created this series, and then the rest of us were fortunate enough to be part of the team and sharing
Yes.
this story. So that was really unique. And then having gone to a few anime conventions or talking to people outside of those venues, I have heard the most touching, meaningful stories that I'm just really honored to be the keeper of. And I can give you some broad strokes. I've heard from many people that they watched Sailor Moon as a child, maybe when they were 6 years old and their parents
Yes.
were going through a divorce or some other traumatic experience. And they would rush home after school or they get up at 6 in the morning, which blows my mind.
Yes, the original time. So early.
To get up to watch a TV show before school. And yet they said it was something that helped them just kind of feel happy or grounded, even though they might not have had the vocabulary for that. Something that
Yes.
really was very positive in their lives, and they still remember that today, years later. And then I've heard from some people who watched Sailor Moon as an adolescent or a young adult, and they've said things like the 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 suggestion of a same-sex relationship in the English
Yes.
version gave them the courage to come out as lesbian or gay or bisexual, or it gave them the courage to claim their sexual identity. And that's obviously very meaningful. And I've also heard from people who have struggled with their mental health. And
Mm,
they've shared some very personal stories about feeling suicidal and
mm.
say that Sailor Moon, along with other important resources, really helps them focus on some of the possibilities
Beautiful.
in life.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, I mean, it's profound. So I just feel so honored to have engaged in those conversations, so that people would share those very meaningful personal experiences with me. And I mean, that resonates, right? That's the point.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
personal connections to artistic creations, be they theater, film, television, or visual arts, or music, or many, many art forms, when we as witnesses or audience members
Yes.
connect to the artists themselves or the messages that the artists have started to create, and sometimes they're collective artists, obviously, in theater, film, television, that it's not just a solo creation, it's a group of people. And to have that connection from the creators, the participants, to the audience is so powerful. It's really, I think it's sacred, actually.
Just the amount of, and I could say just from my own story, and I was definitely not as, living with such harsh conditions, but I was overweight. I was gay myself, overweight, and junior high school and through high school, Sailor Moon was my escapism. And like you said, it was the characters, but it was the performances of the amazing actors and actresses who brought these characters to life. And that is why I feel like there's something special about that 90s version of Sailor Moon. There's a warmth about it. We cover the movies. We've covered now all three of them, the ones that we're thankful that you were able to do back in the day. In this show, we love to celebrate love, friendship, and the warm feelings that media gives us, and Sailor Moon is that warm hug for myself and so many people. So I just can imagine the warmth you get when you do meet fans.
Yeah, it's really special. And I so appreciate you mentioning, I mean, the wonderful actors that so Deke the Deke version was recorded in Canada,
Yes.
and Tracy Moore was the original Sailor Moon for a few episodes, and then she left due to creative differences with the producers. But then when I was lucky enough to join the Sailor Scouts, I realized we had some of the top voice actors in Canada in this cast. There was Susan Roman, Stephanie Morgenstern, Katie Griffin, Karen Bernstein, and we were the Sailor Scouts. And then
Oh,
there was Ron Rubin and Joe Frappier as Luna and Artemis, and Toby Proctor, and more. Like just a who's who of Canadian voice artists. And I look back and then think, and there's so many more. Like if you look it up on the internet, I'd almost forgotten.
oh,
There's
the amount of
over
guests,
60
yes,
actors.
guest voices.
Yeah. And it's just a real list of talented artists. And also they were just really great human beings. And then Linda Valentine came in later when I chose to go in bed rest for my pregnancy, as was recommended by my doctors. So I was really glad that Linda could step in and enjoy the experience as well. So yeah, and oh, I didn't even mention like the directors, like Roland Parliament, who directed so many episodes, and then John Stalker came in and helped primarily when Linda was doing the rest of the shows. And Nicole Twelve, the producer, and Saul, the engineer. Such a team, such an incredible team of professionals. It was really such a gift.
And I really do think that talent, because you could look back to so many shows again, and they're not remembered for whatever reason, but the talent, yes, the voices, I could hear you in my head now, again, the childhood memories that last. I'm 40 years old now, and I love the Deke version of Sailor Moon more than I ever have. And so, again, thank you. Thank you. That talent and the love behind the scenes from everyone involved, truly.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to think about it and talk about it and remind myself, yeah, I'm really grateful. I was very lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
And I remember when you were having your twins at the time, right? Because I remember you dubbed the movies, and there was a website, Save Our Sailors, I feel like back in the day, and they had this thing that Terri was going to be, on bed rest, and she's having twins, but we were so thankful again to have those last performances in those movies.
Yeah, thank you. I was really happy to be able to participate for sure. And this actually, you mentioned the anime conventions. Because I left, obviously for the best reason in my mind, but I still missed everybody, and I kind of felt like, oh, it would have been nice to kind of tie it up with a bow, and I didn't have that. But all of a sudden, I have these opportunities to visit with people at the anime conventions or to talk to you today, and this is kind of like a really nice tying it up with the bow for me. It's a beautiful sort of return to that very special time and project, and I'm really enjoying this. So thank you for having me.
Oh, beyond. Honestly, again, when we started this, I never imagined this would ever happen. We did the movies, we've done the series so many times, and I just have to say we covered the last movie. It was the third one, and I feel like that was the last performance. I don't know whatever it was in recording order, but you gave so much in that as the character of Serena in that. We had the laughing, the joy, but I personally loved when you hit those emotional notes as Serena, and Rini was kidnapped, or Darien Tuxedo Mask was injured. And while I loved Serena's bubbly personalities, when you hit that warmth and that caring Sailor Moon voice, it's beyond.
Can't be! Tuxedo! Tuxedo!
Thank you. Yeah, I think you touch on a really interesting point. I mean, I think one of the reasons that the character of Sailor Moon, well, maybe is iconic or is memorable. Let's just say that. Maybe iconic is a little too big, but
I
it,
feel like iconic. I mean, how many years now are we
yeah, okay.
from? Oh,
Thank you, Nanko Takeuchi.
oh,
Um, but that's true. The writers took her on an emotional journey. I mean, it was quite a roller coaster. There were highs and lows and everything in between. And then you hope as an actor that you can contribute to that and kind of put your own mark on it. And so it's a challenge and it's a privilege and it's fun too, right?
oh.
Everybody has their own sort of their own little twist on things. So yeah, it was a great role to be able to play.
Following that, there was a story, and if you would mind sharing, there was a story about a little girl named Janelle, I want to say. And this is a story I feel like that has touched me for over the years, hearing it again on these appearances. A little girl that was sick and Sailor Moon and your relationship and just putting yourself out there. If you wouldn't mind, I don't want to tell it for you, but
I don't mind, Ryan. You shared a little story with me, so I'll share a story with you. Um, yeah, so we were recording in Toronto, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Western Canada originally.
yes.
That's where I grew up. And a cousin of mine called me, my cousin Marcia called me and said, Terry, I have this young friend, and she loves Sailor Moon. She's 6 years old. Her name is Janelle, and she would really like to talk to you on the phone. Would you consider talking to her? And I said, of course I will. So I called Janelle and her mother Tanis, and we talked on the phone. And I thought it was interesting because at the age of 6, and she was so bright, just really a sharp cookie. Um, I thought maybe she'd have sort of difficulty figuring out that I'm the actor behind the voice. And
Yeah.
so when I occasionally made calls like this, I kind of talked like the character first of all, and then I kind of explained that I'm Terry and I talked in my Terry voice. Anyway, so I did that with Janelle, and it was so much fun. I had such a good conversation with her, and she got off the phone, and her mom got off the phone, and we had a little chat, and then Janelle got back on the phone. She said, I just, I have tears. She said, and my mommy said that those are happy tears. And I was so touched by her. Um, and her family told me it had been really meaningful to her. Well, cut to, I can't remember how much later, but let's say a couple months later or a few months later, we had the opportunity to have Janelle join us in Toronto.
Oh, how beautiful.
Recording session. Yeah, it was great. So she and her mom came and stayed with us, and she was well enough to travel. They took some precautions, and she came to a recording session, and she was a star. She's such a bright light that she contributed so much to the world during her lifetime. She was a spokesperson, I believe, for the Alberta Children's Hospital. She was very articulate. Uh, she lived until her early teens, and then unfortunately
Wow.
passed away. But I had a friendship with her during those years, and we kept in touch. And I saw her and her family in Calgary, and we're not so in touch anymore. And we've just kind of lost touch. But they were an inspirational family, and I'm really grateful to have had that friendship with Janelle. She was just inspiring.
So, just again, it's a testament of not only the character, but you, Terry. That is such a beautiful thing to be able to share that with somebody who would appreciate it so much. That's a beautiful story. I thank you for telling that because I've heard this over parts of it over the years, and it just to me it just shows the beauty of the show, but your heart as well.
Thank you. I think you might be giving me a little too much credit. I just loved Janelle. She was such a pleasure to be around. Her family was amazing. And, sometimes you're just given these like opportunities to share. And why wouldn't you? It was great. She enhanced our lives, and I hope that we touched her in some way. So
Oh. And I'm sure her family too, you touched as well, because that's a beautiful story. Beautiful story.
they're amazing. They were an amazing team. I'm sure they still are. But yeah, yeah, she was a big part of a really strong family unit. So
Okay, here's just a quick fun one. We know Serena, of course, loves to eat. And do you happen to have a favorite snack?
I can tell you this, that when we recorded the Serena scenes, I often brought food into the recording booth, much to the chagrin of the engineer and I'm sure the cleaning staff at the end of the night. But I, as an actor, I try to recreate the circumstances around me as truthfully as possible. So,
Yes.
when Sailor Moon is jumping and fighting and soaring through the universe and that kind of thing, I would usually be very physical and would be on my feet and trying to get my diaphragm working in a way like it might be when I'm running or jumping and that kind of thing. And so when Serena is kind of snacking on food in the kitchen, I thought, well, let's make that as realistic as possible. So I would bring in like nuts and crackers and stuff that might make a little bit of a sound, right? And I'm sure I left cracker crumbs all over the place at the end of this session, but those are the ones that I use most of all, the things that would make a bit of a sound. So, not
Love
a
this.
mushy sandwich, but just something crunchy. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It just adds another layer to your performance. I've always wondered this. As the series went on, were you given any knowledge of upcoming storylines? Like, particularly, I'm thinking Rini coming as Serena's daughter from the future. Were you just like, who is this character?
No, we didn't have advance notice that. So remember that it was recorded in Japanese, first of all. So
Yes.
we dubbed it into English. And for that to happen, there's a laborious process with translators, number one, translating it, and then someone who understands the the technical elements required
Yes.
and matching the time that one might guess is needed to say a certain line with the characters on the screen. And then, of course, it's up to the actors to try to interpret that line at the bottom on what was
Yes.
called a rhythmoband and try to match the consonants and the vowels to the characters on the screen. So there are a lot of steps before we know what the storyline is.
Yes.
So no, to the best of my recollection, we didn't have advance warning. But there's something beautiful about that because then you're in the present. You're the character in the present. You don't, it's like in real life, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So
That's right.
there's something quite wonderful about that.
And it must help with acting, as too, like you're saying, it's almost like, oh, this is a shock. This is definitely a shock.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes, you're surprised for real.
I was wondering if I don't want to strain your voice, but if you wouldn't mind saying just something to our radical ones, our listeners, in Serena's voice, Sailor Moon, as best you could, without straining yourself. I don't want you to have to scream anything, but
So you know what I'll say? Partly because your brother's fighting the flu right now, and
thank you.
and all of us are, I think, facing situations in the world where there's healing required. There's a lot going on in the world right now. So for you, Ryan, for David, for all of your followers, I would say moon healing activation.
Oh, thank you so much, Terri. Thank you so much. I goosebumps, truly. I just want to tell you that one of the biggest joys was being able to tell my parents today. Guess what, Mom and Dad? I'm getting to talk to the voice of Sailor Moon, Terri Hawkes, that I played continuously and probably annoyed you over and over and over again, but it's the biggest joy. So thank you so much for giving us the time and coming on this humble show. It's beyond, and this has meant so much to me. So thank you. Thank you.
Ryan, you're so welcome. And will you please say hi to those parents who
I
indulged you
will.
all those years, and to your nieces and nephews and your family. And I send you all and you good wishes for the year ahead. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
A pleasure. Take care.
Thank you, Terri. Bye bye.